everyone. Thomas Wimes here, as the President and Chief Scientific Officer of Santa Barbara Nutrients. It's my great pleasure to talk with our Director of Manufacturing today, with Jacob Kingaard, to go over, the different aspects of, how we actually make KetoCitra, what are the quality control standards and so on. So welcome, Jacob.
Yes, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm glad to be here with you. Let's dive right in. Maybe you could start by introducing yourself and explaining what your role is in the development and production of KetoCitra.
Sure, of course. So I'm responsible for overseeing product development and the quality standards for KetoCitra. So I work with all the research scientists on the Santa Barbara Nutrients team to ensure that raw materials are in line with those that were actually used in the research. I also work with top-tier analytical labs to determine the appropriate tests for our dietary ingredients. So this includes things like identity testing for these ingredients to confirm that they're correct, that the identity is correct, and assays to ensure that we're using the right amount of these ingredients. We do a suite of tests for things like microbial contamination, impurities like heavy metals, common food allergens, things like gluten, soy, dairy, eggs. And then I'm involved in everything from the ingredient selection to the final manufacturing, all with a focus, of course, on addressing specific kidney health needs. So this entails working directly with suppliers to review the manufacturing documents and test results, and then helping the manufacturing team create and refine a production flow to ensure that product quality is very consistent. So I coordinate all the product and ingredient testing with these third-party labs, and then beyond that, I actually sample every single lot that we make to ensure that customers are getting a really consistent product in terms of how it looks, how it tastes, how it mixes, so that it's the same product each and every time.
Great, excellent. And I should probably highlight, you have been involved and, been in the company right from the very beginning, when we just started the formulation and manufacturing process. So you're the man. And that's maybe a little bit in contrast to many other supplement makers. Oftentimes they don't have their own manufacturing director. They outsource things to third-party manufacturing labs and so on. So we take great pride in having you, on board as our person internal to actually then handle everything else from there. Great, terrific, yeah. And I forgot to highlight that, in addition to your many years of experience in the supplement manufacturing industry, and formulation industry before you joined us, in addition to all that, you also have a Master's of Human Nutrition, which I think comes through because you know what you're talking about, and that's, I think, is very important, when we're especially making a medical product. Great, yeah. Let's maybe discuss any specific criteria, that we're following during the product development and formulation. What's so special about what we do?
Yeah. There's a lot special, honestly, but as you know very well, President and Chief Science Officer of Santa Barbara Nutrients, chemist by training, holds a PhD in biochemistry, leading professor at a research university, directs a lab dedicated to studying PKD specifically. So, along with our other doctorate level researchers, nutrition experts, PKD advocates on our team, every step of product development and formulation has been really, thoroughly scrutinized. So our team of kidney experts came up with a list of very strict requirements for putting KetoCitra together. Has to be sodium free. So most of the BHB products on the market contain a lot of sodium. So this is a big challenge right off the bat. Has to be compatible with ketogenic diets, right? Because that's where the research is. So that means removing carbohydrates, getting those things regularly used in food products like maltodextrin, for example, getting those out of the product right off the bat. And so we actually use an FDA-approved fiber instead. Has to be non-GMO. So that eliminates a whole lot of the ingredients that are available in the marketplace for raw materials. Our flavoring, we needed a truly natural flavor. So in our case, we use a lemon extract and lemon juice to give it the lemonade flavor. And then, of course, no artificial flavors on top of that. And then for sweetness, we use a non-nutritive, an ultra pure Gras stevia extract for sweetness. So very, very pure. And then one of the tricky things was we sourced the cleanest citric acid that we could find anywhere. So it's really well known in the food industry that citric acid is usually produced by biofermentation using a type of black mold. And this was very concerning to us because it's unclear whether these contaminants are a risk to the kidneys if you use them chronically over a long period of time. So we actually managed to locate a source, possibly the only source, that developed a novel process that doesn't use this type of mold. So that really sets us apart from other products and kind of underlines our commitment to keeping people with PKD in mind at every step of the process, from formulation to manufacturing.
Great, excellent. Yeah, and I think we have actually never publicly talked about the sourcing of citric acid. We probably should, because we have gone through really great lengths to find the one and only manufacturer that makes citric acid not from black mold. And everyone I think knows black mold is the nasty stuff that comes up in in damp basements and so on, and has all kinds of health effects. So we really did not necessarily want that in our product. Great. So how about the manufacturing process? How do we ensure purity and quality?
Yeah, purity and quality are always at the top of my mind. So first of all, we produce in an FDA-regulated facility with very rigorous quality protocols. So the production facility is registered with the FDA, meaning it's subject to their inspection regulation at any time. They're able to come in and inspect the facility, inspect production records, employee training logs, and to literally physically take samples and test them independently. But beyond that, each ingredient undergoes testing for purity and potency before production ever starts. We have to test it to ensure that it is what it's supposed to be before it's ever actually even entered into our inventory in our warehouse. So after that, there are multiple quality control checkpoints during the production process. So this helps to keep things consistent as it goes through the process itself. And then each of these steps is documented with rigorous record keeping, and this is subject to inspection by our internal quality team. So this includes things even like the order in which these individual components, ingredients, are blended and filtered, because this is what it takes to make sure that we have this uniform blend every time. Some of these ingredients are very difficult to work with because of their characteristics, their physical properties. So it's really critical to the quality of the finished product that we sort of leverage the experience that we have in working with these specific ingredients to make sure that the final product contains the right ratio, the right blend of all the individual ingredients. We pull samples before, after bottling, make sure that taste, appearance, how they dissolve in water, whatever you're going to mix them with, are just right to make sure that we get that consistent customer experience. But we can't rely on that for testing. So we then take every batch and we send it to really an industry-leading third-party lab to directly test things: BHB, citrate, electrolyte minerals, calcium, potassium, magnesium, and then of course, potential contaminants like heavy metals, numerous different types of bacterial contaminants, mold, fungus. All of those things are directly tested. So nothing is released for sale until we make sure that all of these standards have been met.
Great, wonderful. Yeah, and of course, every supplement manufacturer is supposed to test things. But why would you say is it so important, especially for a medical product for polycystic kidney disease, to be as rigorous as we are? What's the difference?
Yeah. So a big part of the difference is that this is for people with PKD. They already have an additional strain on their body's filtration system. So it's really important that we reduce these harmful components, in the diet and this product as part of the diet as much as we possibly can. Having a consistent quality means every serving must be consistent. Every time you get that scoop, it's got to meet the standards. So this really starts with proper blending and processing methods to make sure that each and every scoop provides what you're expecting as a customer. So this includes getting a consistent amount of the active ingredients every time, but it's also really critical to make sure that it mixes well and that it tastes good. These kinds of things seem less important, but to me, it's really important to provide a consistent, enjoyable experience. If you're using it every day, if it's for chronic use, if it's not pleasant, it's too much hassle, it just becomes a really major obstacle to using it in the long term, which is problematic. So beyond that, rigorous quality control protects users from contaminants, unexpected ingredients that don't belong there. Making a finished good is more complex than you would think. So it requires this sort of strict documentation at every step. You have the analytical testing, which is important, but actually taking these lab tests to verify what is or isn't in an ingredient or the finished product. But every time an ingredient is touched, every time it's moved, weighed, mixed, filtered, processed, in whatever way, a record has to be kept. So this means things like inspecting, verifying weighing, checking against a known standard maybe, and other direct tests in the process, like maybe swabbing an equipment surface to make sure that it doesn't have any contamination for an allergen or a microbe. So in a lot of ways, it's like when you go to your doctor for a procedure, maybe, they check your armband, they ask your name, they say, what's your date of birth? They have another person come in and confirm dosage and medicine. There are all these checks. So it's really, it's about crafting a process that sort of anticipates where mistakes are possible and then reducing that possibility at every step. And then these lab tests, these very sophisticated, expensive lab tests are really critical to making the best product possible, but mostly they just tell you when you haven't done that, or confirm that you have. So it's really about the quality in the process with this level of confirmation.
Excellent. Yeah. And, I've been taking KetoCitra, cheers, from the very beginning every day. So I really trust what you do, Jacob, and, how you're doing it. And because we have also been meeting over and over again to go over all the details there. And of course, we've had many batches, of KetoCitra, and we have to ensure consistency and purity for every single batch. How do you do that? How does your team do that?
Yeah, consistency and purity are absolutely key. A lot of it is again, not to harp on this, but it's the process. It's developing this process. So one of the initial challenges to ensure consistency was to tailor our process to make sure that it suits the ingredients that we use. Some of these that we use in KetoCitra are very challenging, again, because of their physical properties and characteristics, how they can be stored, how they need to be blended, what type of filtering they require. So we've developed this sort of stepwise process that allows us to meet our goal of producing, really the cleanest product we possibly can. This means that we have to limit the non-active ingredients like we talked about, maltodextrin, things like that, in a really significant way. So that helps us make the most kidney-friendly product we can. And, by taking this extra time in development and getting practical hands-on experience, we actually were able to take these nutritive things out and put just a fiber in there to make sure that everything blends correctly, that it flows appropriately, that it can go from one machine to the next to the bottle. And this way we sort of meet all of the technical requirements that are, present in manufacturing. And, in this case, instead of adding something undesirable, a sugar essentially, we add a prebiotic that's beneficial to you. So, sort of a value add instead of something we want to avoid. Beyond
Great.
that, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say, yeah,
Okay.
that sounds terrific. How about audits? Are there any
Yeah.
regular audits, that come into play here?
Yeah. So we're subject to the FDA's jurisdiction. They regulate manufacturing, and they have, like I said, the right to inspect our records, test our products, equipment, any other part of the operation. But beyond that, we also do some consultation with third-party CGMP experts that can come in and help us work on this. And, we add another tier of review and expertise here. So CGMP basically, for people that don't use this as part of their regular everyday language, is really best practices for the industry. It's the current good manufacturing practices, and it's defined by the FDA. It's defined by the regulators. So we have these consultants that come in, these outside experts, and they're unbiased, because they have no real interest except to make sure that the standards are met. And they just provide us with this huge wealth of experience that helps us find creative, constructive solutions to manufacturing challenges and help us to meet, our kidney-friendly goals.
Great. Yeah, let's talk about ingredient sourcing. So how do we make sure we get clean, high quality ingredients, and how are they free from contaminants and so on?
Yeah. So ingredients are key, obviously. You have to start with good quality from the very beginning. So we source from trusted suppliers. We work with reputable suppliers just as a starting point. And then we require that they provide us with documentation for their manufacturing, for their testing. And then we verify that at these expert third-party labs that can verify identity and all these other aspects. And then we work with actual product samples, the physical product itself, to verify that the materials are good and they work with the process that we have. After that, we develop a history with them. We perform more tests. We work with more materials, and then we just continue building relationships and working with these companies themselves to get to know them. So beyond that, we do the independent testing. So we do this independent third-party testing, all the dietary ingredients individually, and then all the batches of finished product. So that way we can ensure that we're, meeting these goals of consistency and purity. And using an independent laboratory, one that's not controlled by us, these labs are subject to federal and state regulation. And, we use ones that are highly, highly reputable, that are experts in testing food, testing drugs. And this just allows us to focus on making the best product possible, and working with these labs, we can feel like we're very confident that we've achieved that.
Great, yes. And of course, they cost money, and more money than, a fly-by-night lab. So, yes. Well, actually, that leads me to the next question. So, how would you say, do things differ between KetoCitra and things, people can just buy off of a regular store shelf? What's the difference?
Sure. Yeah, no, there are differences. One of the primary differences is, we touched on it earlier, this generally recognized as safe GRAS. So KetoCitra is a medical food. This is a different category. So we have to use GRAS ingredients. It's a requirement. This is not a requirement for dietary supplements. So it's an extra level of scrutiny, scientific review, to help ensure that every part of the finished product that customers get is considered safe for people individually. Beyond that, other ingredients, a lot of products that are sold in the marketplace contain fillers, additives, other impurities maybe, that people with PKD want to avoid. We're always trying to keep that mission in mind. And there are very few of these that are formulated and produced with chronic kidney disease in mind. And until KetoCitra, none with PKD in mind specifically. So it's really important to consider that dietary supplements are regulated in such a way that they're not allowed to make disease claims specifically. So there's no reason that a supplement company would make this type of product since they can't legally market it. So as a medical food, KetoCitra falls into a different type of category altogether, and it's specifically defined in statutes. Beyond those requirements, though, our research team is directly involved in ongoing trials, in studies that are trying to help us unpack how diet influences the course of PKD. So, beyond that, we try to bring this deep understanding in product formulation, and it informs every choice that we make. So, at the end of the day, that really goes beyond, just a list of ingredients that are in the product.
Great. Super. Yeah. That actually leads me to the next question. Every once in a while you see on the internet, oh, KetoCitra is more expensive than the stuff I could buy on Amazon, let's say, individually. And, why don't I just mix it up myself and save a few bucks? It is true, one can save a few bucks. But why would you say, I think the answer is obvious based on what we already talked about, but why would you say it might be risky for someone to just do a home mix of a KetoCitra mock-up?
Yeah, I will say this, blending is not for the faint of heart. It's one of the difficult parts of the manufacturing process, but do-it-yourself mixing can easily lead to an incorrect dose, that either reduces effectiveness of what you're trying to get or could potentially cause harm even. And so there are really a lot of variables that you have to consider when you're mixing the product, which means basically it means that there are a lot of ways to make mistakes in the process. So KetoCitra uses multiple types of BHB to get this exact combination of BHB and electrolyte minerals that we determine through our research team. So from a formulation standpoint, this is a real challenge, especially if you consider, most people with PKD are potentially at risk for high blood pressure, and they're likely going to benefit from eating a diet lower in sodium than what's contained in the SAD, the standard American diet. And beyond that, potassium intake can potentially pose issues for some people. And even high levels of magnesium, taken all at one time in a single serving, can cause digestive discomfort for quite a few people, actually. So it's really a delicate balancing act to get just the right amount of these combinations of BHB and minerals so that you get a blend that has the right amount of each of these components, and doing that without adding a bunch of salt to the daily diet. So it's more difficult to do that without the documentation that you get in manufacturing that's provided by raw material suppliers, that gives you the exact percentages of all these components. Labels for a finished product that you go buy off the shelf are calculated from that information and from whatever the manufacturer does, their specifications. But they're only designed to tell the end consumer how much they're ingesting of certain specific nutrients, and that's it. No more detail. Beyond that, we use specific forms of BHB isomers that mirror that was used in the actual research. So many of the products out in the marketplace have a different ratio of these forms. And so, they don't match what's in the study itself. They're not bad forms, but none of the products for sale were designed with people with PKD in mind. So the companies aren't really considering this as a part of their formulation process. KetoCitra is a medical food, not a supplement. So, we can make specific claims about PKD and diet, and supplements can't do that. So really, I don't think any supplement company is going to go out and market a product specifically for people with PKD or other kinds of kidney disease. They can't talk about it. Another thing is the mixing and testing. You need specialized equipment, and that's not available to the average consumer. So the actual mixing process is, really kind of an important consideration, but it doesn't factor in all that testing that we talked about. You need that to make sure that you were successful. And these tests are, like you mentioned, super expensive. They have to be performed by a regulated lab facility. And, because it's difficult to do and it's expensive, it's geared toward companies and researchers, really, that have specific needs and it's just not very accessible to the average person out there just trying to buy ingredients and put them together.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I guess some people might still want to do it, and but what are the challenges they might find even finding clean and high quality
hmm
ingredients like those that we use in KetoCitra?
Yeah, there are definitely a few challenges. So a lot of ingredients can contain hidden additives, fillers that aren't necessarily kidney friendly, especially taken day in and day out. And aside from this lack of accessibility to being able to directly test products, um, you know, you have to consider that a lot of people aren't going to want these fillers that are going to pose these additional challenges to the diet. So practically speaking, BHB mineral compounds are really difficult to work with. They tend to clump together, they hold on to moisture really aggressively, and this means that a lot of manufacturers use things like silicon dioxide, silica compounds to prevent these clumping and flow issues during mixing and in the final product. So they work well in whatever jar you get them in. And these compounds are associated in literature with kidney damage in some situations. And, it just absolutely makes sense to avoid adding them to a medical food intended for those with, potentially impaired renal function, especially one, again, that you're going to use chronically over a period of time. Um, we talked about maltodextrin earlier. It's a very common filler, and it's a highly processed carbohydrate. So it's got a high glycemic index, potentially higher than sugar. And it's a really poor candidate for people that want to maintain lower blood sugar levels and achieve ketosis. Both of these things are really key in the current research about dietary management for people with PKD. So definitely things we want to avoid that are present all over the place, in products you might just pick up on Amazon or something.
Great. Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. And I remember we had many discussions about, clearly we don't want silicon dioxide, to add that to our product or anything like that, maltodextrin. So
Yeah.
these things were out right from the beginning. Great. How would errors in the amount or contamination or ingredient, impurities might affect the effectiveness of a do-it-your-home at your home mix?
Yeah, the home mix.
Mhm.
So incorrectly combining things can just result in too little effect, or potentially harmful amounts, too much or too little. Um, in our case here, an incorrect mixture can easily give you too little BHB to effectively raise blood levels, meaning that you get less or maybe no effect from what you're taking, at least in regards to BHB levels. Um, it'd be relatively easy, I think, because some products state the amount of BHB and the mineral combined on the label. And without the additional information that we talked about, you could easily assume that that's the amount of BHB you're receiving, when you take whatever their serving is. Um, it would actually be considered considerably less, though, because um, unless you calculate this BHB component, mineral component, plus whatever else is in there, anything else that might be in that mix. Um, on the other side, you could receive a lot more mineral than you may be calculating. And this can potentially cause a more serious issue for people with kidney disease, especially, because things like potassium levels. A lot of people with PKD have a more difficult time regulating potassium levels. So that's potentially problematic. Higher levels of magnesium may also pose a problem. I focus on this one a lot, but I've seen this in other products that I've worked with. It can cause very loose stools, and it's very easy for someone to get confused about how they're tolerating everything that's in the mixture. And again, it may seem like less of an issue, but if it prevents you from taking this medical food because you think you're sensitive to it, you're sensitive to one of the specific ingredients, or allergic to it or something like that, you lose the opportunity to use this kind of key strategy for dietary maintenance. Um, and really, it comes down to the fact that these other products are not formulated with kidneys in mind, and they can recommend much larger servings because they're trying to meet maybe a fitness goal or a weight loss goal or something like that. I see a lot of those kinds of products on the market that maybe share a similar ingredient list, or one or two are the same or something like that. Um, Most of these have a very, very high level of sodium, though. So I actually, the other day I went on and I did just a Google search, the most basic Google, Amazon BHB. And one of the top results, I just grabbed the top one randomly and I looked at it, and it suggests that the user take enough to provide over 2,500 milligrams of sodium every day just from the product. And that's way more than a lot of people with PKD need to consume all day. And this is before you've ever eaten any food. So, it also takes that same amount gives you 2,400 milligrams of calcium, which is very near the upper limit, certainly higher than the recommendation, near the upper limit of intake. Again, before you ever eat any actual food during your day. So consider this is a very popular product, top of the search results, formulated by a medical doctor. Um, and, you look at those things, and then I looked even further through the label. It doesn't even say how much BHB is in it, right? So how are you going to take that product and mix it into something with known quantities? Um, Beyond that, contaminants or impurities obviously can cause kidney strain. And this is really worsening rather than supporting kidney health. So I think that at the end of the day, having professional quality control really ensures that each serving is balanced and correct. And, you know, doing it yourself at home with limited information, it can't guarantee that. And it's not tested, after the fact.
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. And of course, always keep in mind, supplements by regulation, they're intended for healthy people. So they're intended to maintain health, but they're not intended for people with to address any diseases or manage diseases. So that's the difference with medical foods. Yeah, all right. Well, how about some closing thoughts? What advice would you give people with PKD that might be considering taking KetoCitra as part of their kidney health approach?
Yes, always the really difficult part, giving advice. um, I would say, trust in products that have this sort of rigorous quality control, and that are designed specifically for PKD patients. That's really what we're after here. So get to know the companies that you work with and understand their goals. There's a lot of different types. Are they a bargain brand that's just trying to sort of sell the least expensive version of a product on the market? Um, are they more quality focused, but make like a large line that tries to make the product, product for everything and everyone? Did they just pop up on Amazon one day and then, they have a version of the most popular seller and then they're gone the next day? Or are they a company that has a goal, a clear mission that you can understand? Um, some of these types of companies may be focused on quality, um, but do they bring a high level of expertise in a particular area? Is there sort of a deep concern for quality because that's part of meeting their mission? I think the way I feel, the reality is that Santa Barbara Nutrients is the only one with products for PKD because we worked on the research. We worked on a lot of this research elucidating how diet influences all these underlying triggers. So this gives us a deep knowledge. and we use that to formulate a medical food. We can speak very directly to those that are in the PKD community because many of them work on our team, and these people, I know from personal experience, they have a real passion for telling everyone else about this research and how to apply it to their own lives because, they're faced with these challenges every day. Other advice I would say, just, consider the importance of consistency and product quality. It's really important in maintaining this kidney health over time. PKD is a chronic disease, and nutritional options that help people manage it take some time. So it's very important that you make sure that the quality is built into the products that they're taking, and that it's there in every batch. We test every single batch we make to ensure that it contains the right amount of BHB, magnesium, calcium, potassium, citrate, and then we don't have a bunch of heavy metals. We don't have, pathogenic bacteria, yeast, mold. All this stuff is really sophisticated, requires a lot of different lab facilities, but even beyond that, we personally test the product, like you said. We take it ourselves. We make sure that every batch dissolves, tastes good, and that it's really consistent when the customer's taking it. It's easy for us because we're already doing this. We would be doing it anyway. And we have a lot of people that are using it, as a part of their own PKD diets following the research.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually also a good point. We have, I think, far over 10 people on our team actually have polycystic kidney disease. They and their families are also taking the KetoCitra, of course. So is there anything else you'd like to add about, role of quality and consistency and so on?
Yeah, I would say look us up, see who we are, check out our team, like you said, look at the research that they've performed, look at their involvement in the PKD community, see what we're about as a company, who we're associating with. We really have a vested interest in quality, and a team that understands what that means. Consider that we're encouraging people with PKD to work with their nephrologists, and with nutrition professionals, not just, ditch all the experts and do your own thing. I can't overstate that PKD management really is a team effort, and that we're working to advocate for this kind of quality in all of these areas, not just by producing KetoCitra, but by researching, educating, participating in clinical studies, working with PKD advocacy groups, and really just kind of promoting awareness of these options for people that may think that they have few options other than just waiting.
Super. Thank you so much, Jacob. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.